Week 16 is here. Week 16, the semifinals of fantasy football, the semifinals of the best ball playoffs is here. We're going to talk about that today. Best Ball Mania 4 pods have been released. Everything is here for us to sweat. We get kicking off tonight with Saints Rams. Let's get it, fam. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Liam Murphy. If you are new to the channel, primarily we do fantasy football and primarily best ball around here. If you're not already, make sure you join my Discord. Link to join is in the YouTube description below. I'm stoked for week 16. We've waited. It's here. Before we get into sweating the teams and talking about the slate, I had a couple tweets to read for you. Started my day, made a smoothie, worked out. I'm feeling good. Feeling good for an awesome week 16 to kick off. So, there's a lot of discussion about how hard it is to make the semifinals, how hard it is to make the finals in something like Best Ball Mania 4. If you found yourself very disappointed you didn't have a team, or disappointment is fine, but if you found yourself besides yourself that you did not have a semifinals team, you don't have a finals team, well, I'd argue you probably didn't understand the structure that well. For example, I put out this tweet. If you have a Best Ball Mania 4 team still alive, that team is a top 1% team in the tournament. Roughly 7,000 teams remain, and in a 670,000 or 670,000 and 7,000 person contest, that's roughly 1%. Only the top 0.07% of teams will make the finals. The lucky 441 teams. So it's hard, guys. There's different structures out there. If you want gentler advance rates, if you want contests that aren't that top heavy, but no, you should not max something like BBM4 or the DraftKings Millie if your goal is to consistently recognize a profit. If your goal is to have a sweat and a fun time, then this is 100% the contest for you. If you're introducing best ball to your buddy, what do I tell them? I usually tell them, hey, do one team in the tournament. Think of it like you're doing your home league. Draft that team, and hey, you don't know, you could win $1 million. It's a great use of it. So just keep your expectations in check. Same thing for DraftKings. There's roughly 16,500 teams, and over 1 million best ball teams have been eliminated from the DraftKings tournament. That contest overlaid, but there were still 1 million entrants in there, 1 million teams. So only the top 0.12% of those teams make the finals. That's 1,375 teams. 1,375 and 441 for a contest as large as 670,000 and 7,000 entrants and 1.1 million entrants the DK Millie could have had. These are okay final sizes. These are great final sizes, actually, is what I would say, for how big the contest is. To me, what I don't want to see for these flagship contests is I don't want to see the final size to be, say, 10,000 teams. Will we, as a collective populace, have teams in the finals more often for that? Yes. Do we also have a much less realistic chance of winning if we get a team to the finals? Yes. And so to me, I think if you play best ball, especially the flagship tournaments, the lottery size tournaments, we want these final sizes reasonably small. We don't want huge final sizes. And we just need to understand it's hard to get a team to the finals. When you do, you want a reasonable chance to win. If you make the finals in Best Ball Mania 4, you have a 1 in roughly 220 chance to at least win $1 million because it's $3 million to first, it's $1 million to second. 1 in 220 is like, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's steep. When I won, it was 1 in 160 because first place was $1 million. So it's hard, but it's doable. 1 in 5,000 if it's a much bigger final size? No. Come on now. Put another tweet out about the cut line I wanted to talk about real quick. Mainly because, all right, we're in there. We're in Underdog. But there was a lot of talk about cut line, so I felt obligated to give my input. We know Underdog takes input from customers, so I think it's good to speak up on these things when when you disagree, because if they're taking our input, we could shape how these contests look. So I said personally, and if you're confused what a cut line is, a cut line would be, instead of pod variants, instead of random pods, what would happen instead is the top X score would advance. So doesn't matter who you're playing against. It's just if you scored 150 points and that was the cut line, you made it to the next round. So on for whatever. And Mythology, bro. You're in one of my BBM pods. Friendship's over this week. Then we're back on next week. So this is some Yoda shit. He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life. Shout out Mythology. Great guy. So, yeah, I mean, why do I not want a cut line? It would lead to a lot more duplicated teams. I don't think people who are advocating for a cut line have really thought through the scenarios of how disastrous it could be. For example, last week was a really high scoring week in total. There's just a lot of players scored a lot of points. There are some weeks that is not the case. There are some weeks, like, pretend James or the CMC scored his points, and then a bunch of other guys who scored well just bombed. Now what you got is like, in that case, it's just 100% CMC teams in the finals. What won Justin Herzig BBM 1? Having like one of the only Alvin Kamara teams when he scored 50. What won me BBM 2? Having one of the few Jamar Chase teams that could make the finals when T. Higgins is the guy who went off week 16. What won Pat Kerrane BBM 3? A low-owned Eckler and Saquon. Mainly Eckler was the guy who went off week 17 and not week 16. So getting these low-owned pieces is half the excitement for these huge contests. Getting your leverage on the field. A cut line destroys that. I'll read this tweet, though. Or it could, at least. I said, first off, I just want to acknowledge there's room for different structures in best ball, and I give credit to sites like Underdog who experiment with different structures and listen to input. So this is primarily just what I would like for Best Ball Mania and the DraftKings Millie. If we want to do a cut line in a random puppy or palm or whatever, go for it. Let's experiment. Anyone who plays fantasy football understands the core tenet of variance. You win or lose in managed leagues based on who you play in a given week. So I'm tired of hearing this is a bad experience for beginners because they don't understand, why didn't I make it when I scored a lot of points? That's a bad experience for them. You know what else is a bad experience? Is when Bob in his local home league loses to Mike with CMC and Tyreek Hill because he got unlucky that week. That's a bad experience too, all right? So let's not pretend that this is like some wildly new thing. I would argue, actually, it is how Best Ball Mania is structured is close to anyone who started in a managed league, which is nearly 100% of fantasy football players. You're used to it. You play people in a week. Sometimes you score a lot and you lose. Sometimes you score a lot in the playoffs and you lose. Sometimes you score a lot in the regular season and then you lose round one of the playoffs. Happens. A cut line sweat would lead to a lot more similar teams for week 16 and week 17, in my opinion. Part of the fun of best ball is if you're able to advance a low-owned player that can give you leverage on the field. Running good on pod variants is one way to do that. I'm very excited for one of my low-scoring teams that advance. I feel like that team has a greater chance to win the contest now. That's exciting. A lot of changes for best ball also read as a complaint to me. You either didn't read the basic rules to understand how the contest is structured. Like, if you didn't know that you get put in a random pod and now you're complaining, what's going on? Or you don't like you had a high-scoring team lose in the playoffs. We don't need to change the structure because of that. We don't need to change the structure because some people's feelings got hurt and or didn't understand the rules. I've also read about what's fair or what it means to be best ball. Some guy was telling me, like, it's not best ball if the high-scoring teams week 15 don't advance. Why is strictly week 15 points scored the fairest way to decide who's alive to win $3 million? Was it fair you drafted Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill didn't play last week, leading to likely a stronger game for Waddle? Doesn't seem any more fair than being in a low-scoring pod to me, right? So the fair definition is unique to each individual, and with a lot of people, changes year to year based on what would help them. AKA, if they're in the low-scoring pod next year, that's fair. But this year wasn't fair because they lost. AKA, like, they're just complaining. It's okay to want changes to contests, but I personally appreciate that final sizes for contests like BBM4 are not thousands of people large, and that for these huge contests, there are things out of my control like pod variants. Right? We just got to know that. Okay. So tonight is a big game. We got Rams versus the Saints. I don't think we have ownership percentages yet for the contest. Either Underdog releases that, and I've not seen that. Usually our boy Hayden Winks does that over at Underdog. And or they're no longer doing that because shout out Patrick from PD is just combing the remaining teams left with his software tool and telling us the ownership percentages. So I don't know if any of those are happening. Maybe one or both will do it retroactively. Maybe it's already out there. I can think through some ownerships for you, though, if you're kind of curious. Yeah, and we got some news. There's no Keenan against the Bills. Guys, the Chargers are going to get boat raced. So let's jump into these pods. I got 4 teams left in Underdog. I got 3 Best Ball Mania 4s. I got 1 Big Board Superflex. 3 teams doesn't sound like a lot, but it is over expectation if you max the contest like I did. So we're primarily going to focus on the BBM4 teams and then just look through the schedule, talk about anything we're seeing. My guess is any team with CMC is going to be mega chalk. Some other mega chalk guys out there is Laporta, mainly because he had a good advance rate and a good week. James Cook, decent advance rate. I was trying to think through what Kyron Williams' advance rate would be because he's on 2 of my teams. He was not drafted that much. He was on 3% of teams last week. I would guess he's max 7 to 10%. Because he scored 22 points in half point, I believe. But he did not separate from Ty Chandler, Zamir White, Mostert, so many guys with similar costs. So you didn't need a Kyron score, James Cook separated, CMC separated. CMC is going to be the chalkiest guy. Let's just jump into these pods, though. Underdog, unfortunately does not give us the, there's no really way to do this other than to manually click into the stuff. Arguably, this is healthful for us not to do what I'm doing, but whatever. Tomorrow, you'll be able to view your DraftKings pods. And so I'll take a look tomorrow to see where I have leverage on my pod, because it will tell me my ownership percentages. But you can't see the teams until the games start on DraftKings. What am I rooting for tonight? Well, Cup is like non-existent in high stakes, I would imagine. It's hard to advance, just period. What I'm really rooting for is that no Kyron Williams is in my 5-man pod for the 5-5-5. It's a 5-man pod, so at worst, roughly 20% I'll advance. I think I got a good team there, but I don't want to face Kyron there. Why? Well, there's a couple scenarios I'm rooting for. Either Kyron Williams goes off, just like 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, let's go. Huge piece, hard to advance without him. I have him on 2 of my BBM 4 teams, and we're going to look at these pods and see if we're facing any Kyron. So that's one thing we're rooting for. And then I want him not in my pod. So I advance my BBM 4 teams. He's not in my pod, not a problem. The other thing I'm rooting for is he is in my pod in the 5-5-5, and he scores like 20 or so points, something like that. So he's a fine score. He's not needed, and I can just outpoint those lineups elsewhere. That's okay too. The third acceptable scenario is you don't need Kyron, and my BBM 4 teams are strong enough to advance without him. That'd be nice too. Use the draft board. It's not in order, but you can see all teams at once. So the draft board I've always found to just be nonsense information. But let's take a look, Neil. Maybe they've changed that. Like in the past, this is an awesome thing that they've done. Okay. Maybe on mobile it used to be like this, but shout out Neil. This is a great way to do this. So by looking at the draft board, you're able to see everyone's team. And I think in the past what they did, at least on iOS for phones, what it was just like random hodgepodge of like nonsense. So I don't know if they changed that or when, but that's awesome. Okay, so the first thing, this is a team I'm excited about because it was a very low scoring team, and it ran lucky on pod luck. I'm also excited about it because it has Christian Watson on it. So ideally, Christian Watson plays this week. He scored 0 points last week. He's obviously hard to advance. Guys like Chris Olave or whatever, you would think their advance rate's going to be low, but I would guess it's not that low due to the correlation of his pick with CMC. Anyone who hard correlates with CMC at the 2-3 turn is going to be a more advance rate player than their points scored week 15 reflects, just because CMC monster advance rate. So this team is my AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Christian Watson, Gabe Davis team. This actually is showing me in the order that I drafted my team. So I think it's showing everyone in the order of everything. Then we went J.K. Dobbins in the 6th. We went Kittle and Pitts, 7th and 8th. I went Dak. I went Charbonnet. I went Love and Purdy. And then I ended with Spears, Kendre Miller, who is playing tonight, I believe. Chuba Hubbard, Sean Tucker, and Kyron Williams, and ended it with Ty Chandler, who was not drafted at 100% clip, clearly. He was like a guy who was drafted a lot on 20 rounds, but not a lot on 18 rounds. And I imagine Kyron's similar, but maybe like not quite as drafted in 20-round formats. So the first thing we're looking for is, what do we got for our Kyron exposure in my pod? It's looking like, to me, we have the only Kyron team in this pod of 16, which is fucking huge, right? We found our leverage right there. Kyron Williams scores 40 points tonight, or 30, something like that. I'm the only team that has him. at all, right? Let's check here. I'm only looking at like rounds 14 plus. I'm looking at the green boxes. You can see like this guy took Chuba in the 14th round, and my team has Chuba in the 15th. Same thing. So that's awesome. We found some leverage there. Looking at the top of the draft, there's quite a bit of AJ Brown who like didn't score well. That just speaks to his advance rate towards the season because we are one of 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Yeah, we are one of 4 AJ Brown teams. The other AJ Brown teams are paired with Amon-Ra and Saquon, and we have CeeDee Lamb. Only one Josh Allen team in here. Dak on several teams. Purdy, I would imagine, is on several teams. You can see I took Purdy in the 12th, and this is a 15th chair of Purdy, so probably an earlier draft. Am I the only CD? That's kind of crazy. Wow, yeah. I mean, but CD got that garbage time touchdown to have like a fine week. No, I'm not the only CD. You're just looking at the round 2 cost because I took CeeDee Lamb at the 1-2 turn. I took AJ Brown 112 and Lamb 201, and these people took Lamb in the first round and then Amon-Ra and Pollard. So there is Lamb in 3 of these pods, but they're paired with different players than AJ Brown. Debo, pretty well owned. Christian Watson, yeah, we're the only share of Christian Watson there. And like my Christian Watson in the 4th, what are we competing against? We're competing against like Drake London's, Terry McLaurin's, Jerry Judy's, Hopkins, JSN's, Gabe Davis too, the Spike Week King. Somehow I'm the only share of Gabe Davis, who did nothing last week. He scored 0 points. But my vibe of how the Bills game could go against the Chargers is I think it's logical for them to want to iron out the kinks of the passing game and just like work on the passing game once the game is out of hand, which it should be early because they've been running the ball a lot as of late. So I could just see them being like, you know what, against teams in the playoffs, we're going to have to pass sometimes. What up? Ooh, control F. That's a good idea. George Kittle. Let's see how that works for. We got 4 teams in here with us. Kyle Pitts, my savior. We got the only Kyle Pitts team versus a great matchup, actually. Indy is a very plus tight end matchup. Dak, Pitts Dak does not exist. Dak is only on 3 teams. So maybe Dak could be one of those classic regular season advance rates that does nothing week 15. Or maybe I'm running hot on Podlock. Charbonnet, yeah, whatever. Purdy, 5 Purdy teams. Jordan Love, 2 teams. So we're seeing good ownership on our players. Just to double check, Kyron, we are the only one. How about Ty Chandler? Wow, we're the only team with Ty Chandler too. And honestly, the amount of teams paired with Kyron and Ty Chandler in the whole contest has got to be very low anyways. And I can look that up. Or if someone could look that up for me using the BBMD tool and just tell me in the chat, that'd be. How many times did people combo Kyron and Ty? Chuba is on 2 teams. Chuba's in a smash spot this week. Honestly, he is. He's got the Packers. He's got like a pretty lock on the roll. Packers run funnel, of course. So I love the spots for my running backs, and especially because this is a 0 running back team. And how about Tajay Spears? He's in a good matchup too. 1 of 2. So we like the team, guys. We got strong leverage. We got guys in great spots. We got starting guy Ty, starter Kyron playing tonight. Chuba in a great spot. Spears in a decent spot against Seattle. We got 3 stud wideouts. We got 2 spike week guys. We watched them come back. We got our tight ends are in decent spots. So I can see the path for this team to make it. Yeah, right? Like, come on now. We're not worried about jinx around here. Absolutely, guys. Please leave a like. Show some holiday flair. Like the video and subscribe. Yeah, you either have the only team so you can talk about your theoretical leverage, or you want everyone to have them, so we're all going down in flames together. Um, we're not, since we have this awesome way of looking at the teams, that's just how we're gonna do it. Fuck me, I just closed out. All right. I don't think anyone looked that up for us, so we're gonna do it here. Pinned in my best ball, in my Discord, is the bbmdb.com. Click on links at your own discretion because someone linked to Chinese porn or something by accident instead by mixing up these characters. Just go under my pinned resources. Roster combos. If we look up, and I'm hoping that this is for the regular season still and did not update for the playoffs, which maybe Patrick did. So it seems like it only was on 745 teams. Fresh picks. Shout out him. I know him. I mean, at least online. Did it 10 times. And then if we look at the leaderboard, I think it will show us how many times that combo advanced last round. Because we can assume that this combo is like, if you made the playoffs with this combo, these two dudes had good weeks. So there was 244 teams. There's roughly 7,000 teams left. So is it strong leverage right now? Hell yeah. Will it be maybe a chalky combo week 17 if both those guys smash again? Yes. So probably ideal for me is like Kyron smashes and Chuba smashes, and we don't use a Chandler score. And then Ty's lower owned, and he gets the Packers week 17, a smash spot for him. These are what we're dreaming of. All right, this is fun. I like that we can look this up now. Let's get this open here. So, my next team. I don't know how to close the Discord sound, so we're going to close that for my sanity. My next team is a CMC Devonta Smith Hurts team with Hawkinson, Ayuk. J.K. Dobbins is on all 3 of my advancing teams, 100%. Yeah, I would kill for him to like Aaron Rodgers it and be like, yeah, I might play, even though it's medically impossible. James Cook, Bateman, Sutton, P. Ryan, Higbee, Mingo, Hyatt, DPJ, Slayton, Campbell, Kyron Williams. So first thing we're looking up here. What do we got for the Kyron? We're running hot. Kyron Williams, a guy who pretty much like lifted my season here as a late round smash. Got the only share of him in this pod as well. That is awesome. You wish you could view it like this on DK? Yeah, this is kind of a nice way to view it. Again, I don't know what it looks like on cell phones. DK does tell you the ownership of the player, though. Like, it will tell you, like, 8% or whatever, and you can do the math for the pod to determine how many teams that is. So that's awesome. Only share of Kyron again. How much McCaffrey is there? There are 9 McCaffrey teams. So I think what this team has a CMC Ayuk mini. I think ideally we're getting ping pong effect there. Either CMC this week, Ayuk next week, Ayuk gets Washington next week, smash. Or Ayuk 2 weeks in a row. Or Ayuk this week, CMC next week, and CMC does nothing this week. Jalen Hurts is just on me and one other team. God, this guy went Hurts, Fields, Trevor. You can advance anything with CMC. Hawkinson. Ooh, we got the only share of TJ Hawkinson who, even though he was the tight end 1 in the regular season, maybe Kelsey pointed him, I forget. No, I think he got him in total points, not points per game. But he scored he went 6 for 60, 9 points, half-point PPR. It was hard to out-advance Njoku, Laporta, whatever. So, yeah. Hawkinson, a onesie spot wheeled up. We already have the Kyron leverage. We already have the Hurts leverage. Getting mega leverage with mega ceiling at the onesie positions is very exciting. Because it's okay, it's easy as this. Hurts scores 30. Hawkinson scores 102. Kyron gives you a usable week. Boom, you're in the finals, most likely. Ayuk is on 4 teams. How many else got J.K. Dobbins in with me? 1. James Cook is also on 9 teams. So James Cook is the classic, the opposite of what Dak was. He's the classic whatever advance rate guy, but then has a great week 15, so now he's mega chalk. So Cook and CMC high owned. Either I want both to go off, so you just need the combo together and Kyron, or one fail and or both fail-ish, both only score 10 points, and I'm still strong enough to advance. Cook bait. 4 teams. Jesus. Sutton. 3 teams. Samaje Perine. Got the only share of him. Higbee going tonight. 1 team of him. At a onesie position. Mingo. 3 teams. Hyatt. 3 teams. DPJ. Got the only share of him. How about my guy, Darius Slayton? Got the only share of Slayton. And then, Kyron. So, this one's path is pretty clear, too. Hurts has a good game. Hawkinson has a good game. Kyron has a good game. And then week 17, I really need... how about Devonta Smith? It's on 5 teams. Nope. He's not on 5 teams. He's on 2... Where's the other effing team? Yeah, he's over there. Okay. Yeah, and then week 17, I need Smith and Ayuk to have kind of nuclear games, so I can fill in my 2 wide receiver spots with actual points, because my wide receiver core is not great overall. Yeah, many are saying J.K. Dobbins is this year's Mike Gesicki. Let me let my cat out. Be right there. Go ahead, Phil. Respectfully, what's up? So I'm liking the pass for these 2 teams. We got leverage at a high variant position in tight end. Boom, right there. Okay. Let's jump into my 3rd pod. My 3rd one is probably my thinnest one. I don't know why. I don't know why I did that, and I also don't know why it pops out in a new window, but that's what we got here. Okay. So my team is an A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra team with Gibbs. We got the Andrews and J.K. Dobbins zeros. Mike Evans, Madison. We got the Richardson 0. Charbonnet, Dillon, Goff, Nico, Laporta, Down, Samuel, Chuba, Slayton, Deontay Hardy. What if Deontay Hardy scores 4 touchdowns against the Chargers? So let's check in. What do we got on our golf ownership? 8 teams. 8. So 50% of the pod. Okay, we can live with that. How about Laporta? 8 teams. Yeah. So we're not getting any separation at the onesie positions. And we need both those guys. They're our only quarterback and our only tight end. Nico, 4 teams. So Nico still week 17. If you get Stroud back in there, smash spot. Downs, got the only share of him. Curtis, we got the only share of Curtis Samuel. Chuba is on 2 teams. Again, I like his matchup. Slayton, you got the only team, or no, three of Slayton. Hardy, only share Deontay Hardy, guys. That was the theory of the pick. Gibbs is on 8 teams. Amon Ra is on 6 teams. A.J, 3 teams with AJ. Mike, yeah, Evans is on 2 teams. Nice ceiling player. Madison is on 2 teams. I don't know if we want that, though. Charbonnet on 3. A.J. Dillon on 2. Yeah, so, I mean, this team's not nearly as exciting as the other two as far as pod luck and just the overall complexion of the team. You know, like those other teams have clear leverage on their semifinals pod and like good overall teams at low ownership at like plenty of pieces. This team it's got a lot of injuries, especially 2 injuries at the onesie positions. When you build a 2 QB, 2 tight end team is kind of tough. So like, can it win the contest? Yes, it can win the contest. Is it very hard for it to win? Kind of, yeah, because it has to pretty much just be nutted everywhere. If Goff to Laporta and Amon-Ra stacks is going to win it for me, because it's going to be like 30-40% owned week 17. Let's take a look at my Superflex pod, because why not? This team's kind of a wagon because it stacked Kyron with Matthew Stafford back in April or whatever. Diggs, Cup, Higgins, Metcalf, George Kittle to Superflex again. JSN, Stafford, Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs in the 8th round. Brock Purdy, Jordan Addison, Sam Howell, Gainwell, Gibson, Mayfield, Warren, Juwan Johnson, Hendon Hooker, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, Kyron Williams. So, like, no one's a 0. Somehow, it's not the only Kyron team. I don't even think Kyron was drafted that much in this contest, but I'm in a potting. It's a fellow Kyron team. Not in BBM4, but in the Superflex one. Chase Brown. We got the only Chase Brown. Jerome Ford, 2 teams. Baker, 2 teams. Warren, 2 teams. Sam Howell. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, what's my hope? My hope is that I get all 3 of my BBM4 teams into the finals. That'd be lit. What would I love? I'd love to have a single team there. One team with a sweat for $3 million. Just sounds effing electric. I would love that. What's mathematically expected? We get 0. Is what it is. Yeah, the only Kyron in the pod. I mean, I think his ownership is probably closer to 5%. Because we just saw that for 2 of my pods. Several people in the chat are saying into that. Scott's saying he ran into no Kyron. I don't think he could have advanced. He could be as low as 5% after being 3% last week, because so many guys matched his score and or outscored him, and he wasn't drafted that much. And it's very unlikely that we saw a normal distribution of Kyron teams when there's so few teams out of 100, like there's like 3,800 teams out of 112K, like due to pod luck, 6 Chiron teams could have been in the same pod and they all could have been bounced. Or, like they're all spread out and those teams just didn't have enough to advance. Take a look at the NFL schedule. Get out of here for the day. So, yeah, I mean, exciting week here. People like to say college football and such like that is why this is happening. And yeah, I think so a little bit. But like, I think the NFL is no longer stupid about fantasy football. And they must realize that like an overwhelming majority of people who watch NFL watch it because of their fantasy teams, Like I'm a diehard Bills fan. I would watch every Bills game regardless. Would I be watching Saints Rams as a casual NFL player if I didn't have fantasy football? I don't know. I would, because this is like basically a playoff match for these two teams, but not many would. So Saints Rams. There's not a lot of cup left. I really don't know about Puka in the BBM4 because he was drafted more than Chiron, but probably lower advance rate due to just touchdowns, and also had a worse last week, I think. So I don't know what Cup's got to be low owned. What I'm not sure of is I can attest to what happened in the DraftKings market because I drafted all my teams on DK, or at least the majority of them, pretty late. What happened there is these like last couple of days of the contest, you could get Cooper Kupp, and it started at the 1-2 turn. Then you could get him at the 2-3 turn. Then you could get him at the 3-4 turn. And that's, I think, the end of his slid. Around 3-4. So there's going to be some mid-4th. If I was the guy who took Kupp at the 3-4 turn with the 4th pick, not everyone is going to be me there. And people were scared back then. They're scared in September. And so what I don't know is what I can't quite remember what day Best Ball Mania filled and how fearful the Best Ball Mania market was. I know I was not thrilled it happened. And that's a risk of drafting early is no, I don't want a guy. I don't like what happened. I don't want what happened to Kupp to happen most years. AKA a guy who I thought was falling way too far based on what we knew. Because, I don't want people to get round 4 Kupp, round 3 Kupp, and have to face that. So, any Cooper Kupp team, you got to be real stoked for in any contest just because he was hard to advance. And now you got a high ceiling player who just put up a good game and he gets the Commanders. No, he had the Commanders. He gets Saints and then Giants. So, Olave also is going to play. Shaheed a piece. Kamara, I'm sure, is high enough owned out there. A little bit of Stafford. Bengals at Steelers. I'm getting the vibe this is a Jalen Warren game. When I watched that game, I caught it live that George Pickens didn't throw a block for Warren. If you've seen that talked about at all. George Pickens just like gave no effort. He could have blocked and Pickens would have scored. Pickens was asked about that and said it was a business decision, basically. He said, look what happened to Tank Dell. I didn't want that to happen to me. Well, newsflash, bro, you're not as good as Tank Dell. And when you're closer to Alan Lazard in ability, you better block your ass off if you want to stay in the league. Right? Jalen Warren was asked about that and said, I would have blocked for George, but people approach this game different ways. So that to me right there is like to the Steelers coaches, you want to reward that shit. You got to beat the Bengals. I don't think you can win a shootout with them. You're not good. They don't have Jamar Chase. They got T. Higgins. People are excited about T. Higgins. I don't think so. Could he have a good game? Yes, of course he could have a good game. Fierce pass rush from the Steelers. We could see Warren. Bengals are the best tight end matchup. So you got any Freiermuth out there? Could Deontay or Pickens get in the end zone? Sure, they could. Could Najee? Yes. I kind of just like Warren because of what was said in the media. And he's an explosive runner, and the Bengals are one of the worst defenses against explosive runners. Hard to get excited about many players on the Bengals side, but Steelers do give up explosive runs and passes. So Mixon could get there. Chase Brown could get there. No one drafted Tanner Hudson. And yeah, like some of these Bengals guys, I guess, could catch a touchdown. Boyd, whatever. Bills Chargers, like I think James Cook should be is arguably the number one skill player out of Buffalo now. Good luck, math. Enjoy the time with your fam. Yeah, I mean, like prevailing wisdom here is that the Bills are going to beat the shit out of the Chargers. The only thing you would say this is a classic trap game, but if you're a Bills player, you need to understand you have no wiggle room. You cannot afford an L and make the playoffs. So I don't feel like it's a trap game because the team has to know as far as back as the Chiefs game, they had to know they had to pretty much win out. And that's what they've done to this date. So I think the Bills score a lot. I don't think the Chargers score a lot. Anyone could have a good game on Buffalo's side. Logically, to me, what makes sense? It makes sense that in a game that you almost can't lose, you're going to practice your passing game just to prepare for the playoffs, prepare for, if you get down, whatever, and all you did is just run James Cook the past couple games, get Gabe Davis back in flow, get Diggs back in flow, get Kincaid, get, Josh back in flow. So I think Cook could have a fun game and all the Bills pieces. Could a Chargers player get there in garbage time and when they're down by a lot? Yes. It would be kind of funny if Buffalo scored more points than the Raiders because you fired your coach. And usually, like, the team tries pretty hard for the interim coach because they hated the old coach. But it would just be kind of funny if the Bills were like, you know what? What'd you allow last week? 63? Yeah, we're going for 64. Commanders at Jets. Yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson and maybe Brees. Brees Hall was down to 36% of snaps last week. I don't know if that was injury related or just the fact that they lost 30-0, so they yanked him. I kind of think it's closer to that. He's been around 60 to 70% of the snaps in the other weeks. So could Brees have a good week? Yes. I like Garrett Wilson's chances. He's also on my 5-5-5 team, so would love for him to get like 10 for 100, maybe get a touchdown. I don't like much on the Commander side. We don't know if Sam Howell's playing. I believe they said he's the starter, but I don't know. Short leash. We don't like the wideouts. Maybe Curtis Samuel a little bit bump up. Maybe the running backs. Maybe Logan Thomas. Lions at Vikings. The Vikings run this very unique defense. They're the only one who run it in the NFL. It's very blitz heavy. Typically, running backs are pretty bad against the Vikings because of this. But a guy like Gibbs could totally get, he could totally get a blitz beater. And now he's got less guys to deal with because the blitz is behind him. So I like a lot of Lions pieces here. How could you not? Amon-Ra. All things are pointing to a solid game from Amon-Ra. I would love that he's on my 5-5-5 team. I would love for Goff to have a good game, but the Vikings D is good enough. Like the Vikings D is bizarre because they've kind of been like a first half, second half team that they're playing outrageously good some weeks. Like it was like the Bengals had no points and then they came back. So Goff could definitely shit the bed. I would like for him to have a good game though. Viking side, it's a great matchup for the passing game. You got the revenge game, TJ Hawkinson. You got Jefferson at near 0% ownership. Another week healthier. You got Addison, who just came off a pretty lucky game, but in a great matchup. Like the Lions D's banged up. I think they're getting some guys back. Not as good a matchup for the run game, but they could get some touchdowns. Browns Texans, man, that Njoku and Amari Cooper garbage time. It wasn't even garbage time. The game was competitive, but just like end of game, unlikely points killed me last week. I could see Singletary racking up a ton of touches again. He was a workhorse last week. Case Keenum is going to start again. I think all the Browns guys are in a fine enough spot. Jerome Ford, Cooper, Njoku, the main ones, and then maybe a little bit of Elijah Moore. Texan side, Singletary. I got a Noah Brown team in the DraftKings Millie Maker. You know, literally, I might have the only share of him in the contest. Exciting. That's leverage right there, right? Like, that to me is a sign I did my job. When you get a guy like that and he's a high ceiling player, I don't love his matchup this week, but I like it for the Titans next week. But yeah, this game should be pretty low scoring. Packers at Panthers. Again, like a lower scoring game, but good matchup for Chuba Hubbard. Good matchup for Aaron Jones. Typically not a great matchup for the passing game, but you know, you can do whatever you want on the Panthers, kind of. So Jaden Reed could get there again on like bizarre end arounds. No one other than Chuba you're excited for. Seahawks at Titans. I believe we're getting Geno. What I don't have a good vibe for is what Geno we're getting. Are we getting healthy Geno? Or are we getting a pretty banged up Geno? He's probably healthy-ish if he's getting played over Drew Lock, who just beat the Eagles. But they like, I thought they were either so afraid of Drew Lock against the Eagles or Pete Carroll / whoever the OC there is just like cooked as a decision maker, because you should just pass on the Eagles. And they were able to pass. They just didn't do it a lot. This game though, Titans reverse slot funnel. So like not as good for JSN. Is good news for DK Metcalf though to me. DK Metcalf's exciting. I think Ken Walker with his usage can get there against anyone. Titan side, maybe Tajay Spears, maybe Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was so bad last week, 12 rushing yards. I thought that was one of the worst narratives this summer. It's not revisionist. I said this a lot over the summer. No, I was not a believer that Derrick Henry against the Texans, he gets him twice in the fantasy playoffs. I actually kind of bought more that like the Texans get the Titans secondary twice in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, guys, who cares? Like, this is akin to when people used to like tout the Patriots record against the Bills when Josh Allen took over and Brady was gone. And I was like, are you guys following the NFL in today's landscape? So whatever. Bizarre usage for Henry. He got used a lot, just really ineffective. And the Texans used is more legit. But on Titans side, I think any of the normal guys can get there. Treylon Burks was back last week as far as like at least capable of giving a spike week. He ran courtesy of Fantasy Life 90% of the routes. So yeah, he's like a full-time player again. Hopkins, him, Spears, Henry, usual suspects. Chig sucks. Falcons at Colts could go like the Colts side. I'm not as excited about. I think Jonathan Taylor might play. He's got to be mega low owned if so. Zach Moss was an explosive runner, and maybe like the mileage has caught up to him this season. And he got hurt, I think. Michael Pittman was concussed, but because the Colts are in a playoff race, I believe they're rushing him back. It's my speculation. So I don't know. The Falcons D is a weird D. They're a good unit. They don't get a lot of pass rush. They're going to try to stop the run, obviously. The Falcons side, yeah, the run game pieces could get there, Bijan or Algier. It is a good matchup for Pitts. And it's a fine matchup for Drake London, too. Drake London's had decent home game logs, but we'll see how sticky that is. Jags at Bucks. You got to feel excited for any Calvin Ridley you got out there. I mean, the man should have had a touchdown last week. Calvin Ridley, I'm going to really need to review this a little bit over the season because I was really into Calvin Ridley. And for a little bit there, I just thought it was kind of like bad process by me. But now, like looking into it a little bit more, maybe Calvin Ridley is just running really bad because he has had maybe like 4 to 6 touchdowns wiped out by like inches of like either like his foot doesn't land quite in or he's pushed out or anything like that. So he's running really bad. Trevor Lawrence did not practice so far this week. I have ETN on my 5-5-5 team, and it's a really thin running back room with pretty much just ETN, Jalen Warren, and Tajay Spears. So I would love for ETN at least to get, some checkdowns, have a fine enough week. He gets the Panthers week 17. Very nice. On the Bucs side, I think anyone could get there. The Jags D, overrated. They looked fine, though, the most recent week. Big game for both teams. Cowboys at Dolphins. Yeah, I mean, I think the Dolphins are going to look at what Buffalo did and, of course, attempt to just establish the run. So I think Mostert has been running insanely hot this year, unquestionably as of late, right? Like against the Titans, they turned it over twice in the red zone, and Mostert got both those touchdowns. The Jets did that too. He got both these short touchdowns. We just saw what James Cook and the Bills did against the Cowboys. Will the Cowboys learn from that? Can they do anything about it in such a short time? You would think they would. Joe Brady said he didn't plan to run like that against the Cowboys. The Bills OC, it just was working. So I could see Mostert and Achane getting there. Cowboys pieces, I think, are all in good spots. Ferguson, Lamb, and Cook even, and also Pollard. Cardinals at Bears. Any Trey McBride shares are pretty exciting. They get the Bears, a great tight end matchup. We just saw what David Njoku did versus them. Really like the most exciting player from there. Maybe some Kyler. Trey McBride on my 5-5-5 team also won me the 5-5-5 last year with his game against Atlanta. Bears side, you got some Justin Fields. I think you're excited. DJ Moore can get there. DJ Moore has beat man defense historically more than zone, and Cardinals run more zone. Maybe a running back gets there from the Bears. Pats at Broncos. League winner Zeke. I don't think so. Yeah, Rachaad White in a great spot. Pats at Broncos. I don't think anyone's exciting from these two teams. Will Ramondre play? Probably not. Hopefully he does, though. Could Zeke have a fine game? Yes. Broncos are a great matchup for tight end, so Hunter Henry could get there. Broncos side, it's a good matchup for Sutton. Pats are bad against the pass game. Outside wideouts. Raiders at Chiefs. I'm not sure what the status for Pacheco is. Sorry, drank a lot of smoothie. Having hiccups now. Yeah, so Raiders and Chiefs. I mean, the Raiders just looked amazing, but they did that against probably a quitting team. The Chiefs have not looked amazing as of late. Rashee Rice, fine spot. Chiefs running back, fine spot, which like McKinnon got banged up. I don't know about Pacheco. You got CEH in the mix, who no one really has. If the Raiders are trailing, fine spot for Adams, fine spot for Jacoby Myers, maybe Michael Mayer. Raiders running back, don't know who's playing. Giants at Eagles. This is a smash spot for A.J. Brown. Giants run man defense at like near the highest rates in the NFL, and A.J. Brown is a man defense destroyer. It's also, I think all the Eagles pieces. Hurts, Goddard, run game even. Will the Eagles continue to do the Boston Scott thing? It's not even a question. They've said in the media that, yes, they like to do that. They like to get Boston Scott touchdowns against the Giants. Are they going to keep doing that? I don't know, because they've lost 3 games in a row, and really they should have lost 4 in a row if they didn't hit that 60-yard field goal in the fucking rain against Buffalo. But yeah, I could see the Eagles just trying to like control this game. Giants, I mean, honestly, like a good matchup for all the Giants pieces. Not a great one for Saquon, but if you got any Slayton, you got any Hyatt, Darren Waller played. Good spot. Ravens at 49ers last game, and a huge game. A huge game because CMC is going to be like 60% plus owned in pods. Might get a rare pod where there's like 3 CMC teams. So one of the chalkiest first round pick is playing in this game. I think the 49ers are going to beat down the Ravens. If there's a team that's a fraud between these two teams, it is the Ravens to me, because the Ravens, to no fault of their own, have not played any elite quarterbacks this year that are healthy. They played Joe Burrow when he wasn't healthy. They played Jared Goff. So this is a different animal than playing the Steelers and the Browns. Now, what are the Ravens' path to victory? I think it's just Lamar being awesome and kind of like being like the Eagles are, where they just like convert first down after first down. Mobile quarterbacks have given the 49ers some fits over the years. So just like Ravens will look to keep the game low scoring, low possessions, high variance, I think. They're just not as good as the 49ers. I don't think we know quite how good the Ravens defense is. Can they do it against this team? Teams have been running on the Ravens. So, yeah, I think this is a fine spot for CMC. And to me, if at all possible, Shanahan will run the score up. He's not someone who's like, hey, the playoffs are 2 weeks away. Let's give my guys a week. He's going to be like, oh, this is the 1 seed in the AFC. Let's try to destroy them. So anyone can get there from the 49ers any given week. Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, CMC. Yeah, they can all get there. That's week 16 as I see it, guys. We'll be back tomorrow probably to jump into my DK 555 pod. Hopefully I got no Kyron I'm facing there. That'd be nice. We got the mega Kyron leverage. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope everyone has a happy holidays if I don't see them before then. Merry Christmas if you celebrate, or other holiday. Please hit a like and subscribe to my channel if you're in the holiday cheer. I also have a Discord where you can talk with me. I'm quite active in there. The link to join that is in the YouTube description below. Good luck to you. Good luck to me. Let's get this.